Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Well, it's Friday, it's 5 to 5, and that means that the doors to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club are open once again. Hello, everybody, my name is Paul Carmichael.
And I'm Alan Lear.
And we are having a few issues today, aren't we, Al? Because Tony may be in the lavatory, but of course he's left the cat very much outside the room for us to look after, and she's not the most even-tempered animal, is she, Al?
No, my gnats are in shreds. There's urine and possibly vomit all over the legs of one of my favourite armchairs, and if she's been at my bookshelves, I'll not only have her declawed, I'll have her defanged and delegged as well.
It's quite possible she has. So we made we put a phone call in earlier to the... Oh, there's the door. Do you want to get the door and just check if that's who we hope it is?
Yes, certainly. Hello, can I help you?
Oh, hi there. I'm Mark Lester. I've come to see Tony's cat, Molly.
Oh, about time. Please, step this way.
Oh, Mark, yeah, come in, please. Yeah, she's an interesting animal, isn't she, Al?
Well, I nearly called an emergency plumber for her, never mind a vet.
Yeah, she was here just before. I can't see her at the moment. She does have a tendency to hide when she thinks she might be in any sort of trouble. It's a bit annoying. Well, I'll tell you what, whilst we wait though, Mark, what Alan and I often do at this time on a Friday is we give Tony's magical bingo machine a bit of a spin, just to keep it all oiled up, and then we just have a bit of a ramble. So whilst we're waiting for Molly, would you maybe like to accompany us this week?
I would certainly be my pleasure.
Oh, wonderful. In that case, let's give her a whirl and see where we end up. Off we go.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers, and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. Thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
Well, here we are in the great outdoors, ready to begin our first ramble with our very special guest president, Mr. Mark Lester. And the first numbers selected by the machine are...
6, 3, 4.
634. That's 634. And that means the first subject for us to ramble about somehow is... orchards, fruits, and forestry. Orchards, fruits, and forestry. I'm very fond of a forest, certainly. Orchards less so. I don't think I've ever been in an orchard, thinking about it. Either of you, immediately, if I was to say orchards, fruits, forestry, are there any pictures that are conjured up?
Yeah, there's a pub in Oxford, down by the river. I think it's called named after a fish. I think it's called the Perch. And at the side, you drive down, you come off the main roundabout coming into Oxford on the A40, and then you drive down. It's wonderful, go over this old sort of cobbled bridge, and then go to the pub, which is a very oldie-worldy pub. But opposite, they have an orchard, and they have about 100 different species, whatever, of apple, types of apple. And they're all... or is it pears? Could be pears. But that's not an orchard, isn't it? I've thought, no, it's apples, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, or maybe they've got both. And it's wonderful, and it's kept, and they have sort of special nettings up and things, but it's all listed. And is it it's the Trout pub. in Oxford, and I was born in Oxford, so I don't live there anymore, but I kind of have an affinity to it. But yeah, it's a wonderful orchard there, and it's not very big. I would say it's about it's about 100 feet or something. But you go in and you see all these some of them have wonderful names. These apples that you wouldn't, I don't know, someone's obviously thought them up. But forest, I don't know much about forests. And what was the other one?
Fruits.
Well, I do like fruit.
Well,
Yeah. So I think everyone does.
oh yeah, I do. But forestry-wise, I always remember that when I was little, we went to Delamere Forest, which now that I look at it on maps, it's not the biggest sort of forest in the world. But thinking back, this was like some sort of an enchanted wood, and I remember sitting in a hide for quite a long time, although I was a child with ADHD, so it may have only been 5 minutes. But I remember sitting there so quietly. And then that was the first time I saw a deer in the wild, just sort of like wandering up to the hide. And that was an incredible memory, being that close to something that obviously you normally wouldn't get close to. I think that was wonderful. And of course, it made me realize that, I suppose a long time ago, this country was basically entirely forest, wasn't it? I mean, if you go back far enough, you think of the Forest of Arden and that sort of thing, which is now about 4 meters square. You know, it used to be this expanse of English countryside. Al, what in terms of forestry, what do you think of that?
I can't really think anything. It's one of the things that we got wrong in this country, wasn't it? That was that we replaced a lot of the old deciduous trees with foreign imports like pine, and a lot of the native species suffered greatly as a result. My parents' house is actually in an old orchard. There were even when they moved in, there were even a couple of scraggly old apple trees in the back lawn. But it was the whole area it was in was an abbey grounds. Hence the name of the town, West Kirby. It was the West Church. And we're in where I'm sat right now. I'm currently in the old apple orchard. You can still see the scars in the brickwork where the art in the back wall where the arches used to be to lead from the church into the orchard. So quite a personal link to orchards there. The thing about having lots of different breeds of apples is apparently apples don't breed true. If you want a specific breed of apple, you have to make it yourself with a little paintbrush to get to cross-pollinate the trees, because if you just leave them to it, the breed of apple you end up with isn't the one you started with. They just have the genetics aren't tame, they just go anyway.
So you get a sort of a hybrid apple, a new breed of apple?
Yeah, you'll get something that's not the breed of apple you were intending to grow. You can't just put the core from a Granny Smith in the ground and expect to get Granny Smith apples, because it doesn't work like that. I'm sure it's something we all tried as a child. I'm sure we all planted. So I remember planting apple pips in my grandparents' flower beds, which they permitted, safe in the knowledge that they wouldn't grow. They're not going to ruin the roses. It takes a lot more work than just bunging it in the soil to get an apple tree.
In terms of nature, then, what sort of what impact has that had upon you growing up? And I am thinking, obviously, right back to your early career, that lovely imaginative thing of being an actor. Were you a nature boy growing up?
Well, fortunately, we lived in Richmond when I was growing up, and we lived right near the park. So many a day, the weekend, I go off with my mates, and we go exploring, and we had these imaginations about all sorts of adventures we were going to have, like Famous Fives almost, in Richmond Park. And there is quite a densely wooded part to it. And coming through we're coming through Richmond Gate, I seem to remember, if you go, you could get to it in there was a kind of not a secret gateway, but there was not the main gate. There was a footpath, and it was quite densely wooded there. And you come out into the main area. There are deer there, of course, but lots of trees and the most wonderful park. And we used to go all the way down to Sheengate and then around to Roehampton. and we'd either take our bikes with us or we would just walk. But yeah, I was very fortunate to have grown up there. So it's probably one of the most, I remember as a kid, one of the most memorable parks.
Yeah. So something that would have really, I suppose, formed that sort of childhood imagination. I certainly found that as well, just growing up. I mean, I lived in Liverpool 8, which was not exactly a foresty area, of course, but I remember there was a lot of bomb damage still, even in the 70s for some reason. So I do remember exploring craters, and I found that the landscape really shaped my imagination, which I know is something that Alan Garner writes about, that idea of the landscape creating imagery and story within your head, which I've always found absolutely fascinating.
Quite a lot of children. The woods, particularly, are very evocative for children's writers. I'm thinking of Mole lost in the wild woods in Wind and the Willows. The idea that the woods were still wild and dangerous. That they were a place where children could watch their step.
Yeah, it's a fascinating man, Kenneth Grahame. I've just been reading his biography. Absolutely remarkable bloke. He never grew up and didn't want to grow up. Lost his mother to scarlet fever, lost his brother to scarlet fever. Dad became a bit of a drinker and sent him away, down to Richmond, actually. And it was whilst he was down there that he encountered a river for the first time, and that's where those stories came from. But just never grew up at all.
His son was very sickly, wasn't he? Because he told the Wind and the Willows stories to his son while he was on his sick bed.
Well, he was very sickly, but also he was rather cosseted. He was told he was an incredibly special boy. He was born to be great things, all this sort of thing. But I think that was it was probably because he was blind in one eye. He had a speech impediment. So they tried to build him up, and they were determined he should just be this great thing within society. And one of the things that they did then was they sent him to Eton, unfortunately, where he had a massive nervous breakdown. And then, he committed suicide in the end by lying across a railway track. But this tragic life. But Kenneth Grahame, I mean, The Wind in the Willows is the only full-length novel he ever wrote. But we remember him in such a way now. But my God, he had this rather sad, rather tragic life, including getting married to a woman who he didn't really know what the point of women was. That's why there are no female characters in his writing. He just thought they were rather silly things. And so married this poor woman and then just basically ignored her, including separating his house with supporting walls so that they had half a house each. So,
that's like, is it W.H. Auden who is supposed to have been unable to consummate his wedding because he was terrified by the discovery that women had pubic hair?
That's right, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Fascinating bloke. Absolutely fascinating. So, I think it is fascinating the way that these things sort of create images within our heads, which then obviously would lead me to another question, which is, as a child actor, Mark, do you think that it was the fact that you were a child that enabled you to become so involved with the situations that you were performing in? Because obviously there's nothing naturalistic about being on a film set. So to be able to engage in them, suspend your disbelief, how much of that was down to this childlike ability to suspend disbelief, do you think?
I mean, it is, as you say, it's a very phony atmosphere because you've got all the cameras and lights and everything and the cables behind the camera, and then in front of it you've got the set. So I think it was a lot to do with the directors as well, who would guide us as kids through what they wanted to do through various techniques. Carol Reed was very clever. I mean, he would employ magicians and clowns and put them behind the camera to make us laugh, and so it was quite spontaneous. Did it really require much imagination? I think I had more imagination off set than I did on set.
So I'm thinking, because the film that I always think about when it comes to your work is the film Melody.
Yep.
Oh, it's a wonderful, magnificent film. I want to talk to you about it later. Won't ruin it yet. But that film is so unusual, isn't it? Because it has such a naturalistic feel. That feels almost like it's just real events that have been captured almost. There's so much there's not so much dialogue. There's an awful lot of naturalistic behavior. Was that a different film to make from, say, Oliver?
Oh, yeah. Well, we made Oliver. It took a year to make. And Melody, I think we did it over the summer. I think we did it in about 12 weeks. So it's obviously a lot quicker. But Warris Hussein, the director of Melody, was very good at basically getting a bunch of kids and just letting them, a lot of the scenes in the school running around and with the sports day and everything. They just had a few cameras filming and they just let the kids get on with it. And then they obviously edited it all together. And so they got that, he got that sense of chaos. And, with the kids, even when the bell went and everyone went to lessons, it was how I remember being at school. Everyone was running up the stairs and we were always late for their lessons and we're trying to get there on time. And I think he managed to create that feeling. Also, with the music as well, that helps a lot. Putting the Bee Gees in there.
It's so 1971. I mean, everything about it is that year. It's amazingly sort of hauntological.
It was a great decade, that, actually. Looking back, well, was it? I don't know. Everything looks better with rose-tinted glasses, but with some great music, it was just, it was good.
Well, here we are, second location, second set of numbers, and those numbers are
3, 0, 4.
304, 304, and that means our second subject is factors affecting social behavior. Factors affecting social behavior. I mean, I rally against social media. I think that's been incredibly corruptive in terms of dialogue, I suppose. And it's such a new form of, because obviously, as we were just saying, in the 70s, there was nothing like that. And these days, everybody has their voice. Whether they should use it or not is another matter. But I've always found that it damages discourse, I think, rather than enables it, but that could just be me. So what are the factors that we think currently are affecting social behaviour, you reckon?
Well, I think a lot of these kids are seeing stuff on Instagram or TikTok, and they perceive that to be the reality when it probably isn't, and they're trying to. I think they given expectations to live up to, which maybe they find it very difficult to do so. But on the other hand, I think it's a great media for opening up the world to see different cultures and how other people live in different countries, maybe. But it's open to abuse. I mean, I don't really use social media that much, but my daughter is like, she'll get up in the morning, make a cup of tea, and then post that on Facebook. So she's just, she posts, I don't know, 10, 15 times a day, or just nonsense stuff. But, she enjoys it, and she seems to know all about it. If I have an issue if I need to do something with it, social media, then I ask her, and she seems to know everything about it. But, I think it's open to abuse, obviously, but I think generally it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, we've recently, for this very show, my son is now employed to handle the social media. The engagement's just gone up like that because of things he's doing. I don't know, he just tells me that I wouldn't understand because I'm old, apparently.
I get that.
Which may be true to an extent. That could well be true. The way that society has gone, again, we were talking about the 70s. Would you say that there's been a shift, a particular shift in how society, in how we coexist in society?
I think that a lot of I don't know how old you are. What did you grow up in the 70s or?
In the mid 70s I was born, so just 50.
So you were more 80s guy. Okay, so
Yeah.
but even then, where there was no, I think it's the communication that is incredible through social media. So, how things have changed. I think there's a lot more. I don't know, mental health issues now, which I never got. I mean, if I was at school and we had mental health issues, we'd get beaten up, and then told to get on with it. There was no such thing. I think there's a creation of making things too easy for some of these kids. They don't have to. They can opt out quite easily of everyday life by having these safe spaces, or they can identify as various different things if they want to. Which, I mean, when I was growing up, would have been absolutely ridiculous, and probably would have been locked up in a cage or something. But hey ho.
Yeah. I think when we were chatting to Kate Copstick, wasn't it, Alan? She was saying about how you've got that sort of philosophy now where everybody gets a prize, and maybe that's removed some of that desire to excel and that desire to be something more than
the lack of competitiveness, which is not good. Because that's how humans survive, with competition, wanting to be better, striving. And if everyone is given everything equally, then there's absolutely no point.
Yeah. So Al, we've talked about this before. What, in terms of societal changes, what do you think what would you say are the key factors that are affecting people these days? I mean, social media is obviously one, but what would you reckon are more?
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we? Because at the moment, what we're doing is we're seeing a centrist government responding to a threat of the far right rising by making life harder for all the poorest people in society. And if there's one thing that makes the far right thrive, it's difficult situations for the poorest people in society. So we're going to cut HIP, we're going to cut pensioners' winter fuel payments, and then we're going to be amazed when Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister in 8 years' time. That's not going to happen because Nigel Farage doesn't want to do the work. All he wants to do is show up, get his photo taken, and have people stop him in the street and thank him for saving him from the unelected monsters of Europe. He's in it for the glory. He doesn't actually want to do it. But we are creating conditions that is making life easier for the far right, and we are doing it by cutting support to the poorest people in society. And that is that is a cyclical trend. It happened in the 70s with the rise of the National Front. It happened. It happened under Thatcher. It's happening again now. And the big difference now is that we're so heavily interconnected that everyone is getting bombarded on social media with far-right messaging from the United States, which is pushing our Overton window to the right at the same time as it pushes theirs to the right. Most of which comes from bad actors. It comes from a small percentage of people in the American chatterati and from Russian bot farms, but that doesn't change the fact that if you see something often enough, you'll come to believe it's true.
Mm. In terms of thinking then about how when we grew up, there's a number of years between all three of us. Would you say, because there's obviously this thing where we can look back with rose-tinted spectacles and say, it was better in my day. I personally believe it was. However, would you actually subscribe to that idea, both of you, that it was better before we had such things that we have now? So that thing of everything being on display, whether it's photographing your breakfast or whatever. Were things actually in some way better than they are now, do you think? Simpler, maybe?
They were certainly different. Better? I don't think so. I think it's better now.
Right.
You have much more choice, freedom of movement. Obviously there are certain things. I mean, maybe not having the reliance on technology that we used to just get on with it. Our imaginations were probably a little bit more active back in 30, 40 years ago, but nowadays, I don't think so. I think life now is, for me anyway, I find it infinitely better than it would have been before.
I suppose there's a number of things that we can do now that we couldn't have done. Absolutely.
some things were better. Student grants were better than student loans, for instance. But overall, I think Mark's right. I think it's actually a case not that things are worse now, but that your horizons are broader. You see, you're not living in such a small box because you see so much more of the world. And that can cause you to be dissatisfied because you compare your situation to other people's and you go, well, how come they've got that and I haven't got this? But on the other hand, I think it's got to be a positive thing, as you say, that we see so much more of other cultures and other possibilities these days. It's not like it was in the... I don't know if you remember Mark Steele talking about, he must be in his 60s now, and he's talking about growing up in quite a poor area of London. And he said that kids at school used to call him posh because when he grew up, he wanted to drive a van. Driving a van wasn't for their level of society. You put things in the van. The posh kids drove the van. Yeah, so, there is, without the ability to communicate with the outside world, you do see a very narrowing of possibilities of your scope of life, and I think that's definitely better for everybody these days.
I suppose also the fact that it's an awful lot more easy to travel these days as well. If I think of the first time that I went abroad, it seemed to be such a faff just trying to organise a flight or anything like that. Whereas yesterday, my wife booked as a week in Prague, and it took about 10 minutes. That was for everything. So that ability to travel and therefore, expand horizons that way, I suppose that's become a lot easier, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You can just jump on the internet now and get an easy jet or whatever flight, in as you say, in about literally 5 minutes. And then the hotel is always included. And then, absolutely. I mean, and then you can pick all the destinations. You got before we used to go down to the travel agents, didn't we? And you'd sit down and they'd go through a whole load of brochures. And you kind of had a bit of an idea of where you wanted to go. But now you can just click on multiple links and you could pick anywhere, and then you can get all the different prices of the flights and everything. It's really I don't even know why travel agents even exist anymore, but you can just do it yourself.
Yeah. It's maybe then what I said originally about things were definitely better. Maybe I think probably what it is also is I'm getting older and I don't like it, and I think there's an awful lot of that in society where we're just thinking possibly that's why you get so many people who seem quite cross about so much. Is it's that thing of, well, I'm getting older and I don't want it to be over. I think there could be an element of that as well coming into play. Maybe that's the rose-tinted spectacles there.
That's the classic thing of, everything was better 30 years ago. What exactly was better 30 years ago? Well, my back didn't hurt.
Yeah, do you know what? That's literally what I was thinking this morning, to be fair. Yeah, that's basically it. My back wasn't so sore. Oh, well.
We actually have been to a travel agent for our last couple of holidays, but the travel agent we go to used to be a rep. So she's actually been to a lot of the places we're looking at, and she'll sit there and go, don't go there, it's overpriced, there's too many people, it doesn't live up to the hype. This is nice because it's smaller, there's more things to do, that kind of thing. So that's somebody who's actually got the experience is very useful if you're doing something like that. Although, as you say, it's so easy to just do it yourself that for most people it's probably, if your travel agent is just somebody who's always worked as a travel agent, then I don't see what the point is.
Well, here we are in our third and final location with our guest president, Mark Lester, and our third and final set of numbers are
8, 1, 3.
813. 813. And that means the subject is fiction. As broad as that. Fiction. Mark.
Okay.
Favourite book as a child? What would that have been?
My favourite book as a child, it's the only book I've ever read twice, and it was Dracula by Bram Stoker. It's a very, very dark book, and I think I read it when I was about 12, and then I reread it again a few years later. So it's not my favourite book. I have many books that are favorites, but that was the first one, and it's never been the actual. If you read the book, there's no movie that's ever really captured that feeling in its entirety. There've been a few that have come close, but that was my first. I mean, well, I read lots of other things before, but that's the one that had the most impact on me, I would say, as a child.
What? Go on. Sorry.
I was going to say it's quite an unusual book for a child to read, because most books you read as children are omniscient third-person narrator, whereas Dracula isn't. It's an epistolary novel, so you're in the heads of all the characters.
Yeah, that's probably why I really enjoy it. I mean, I read all the Biggles stuff. Alistair MacLean was a great one. Trevelyan. Those kind of action-venture things. The Bourne Identity? Was that Trevelyan? Yeah. But that was the first one. I've later on read, some of the Russian Dostoevsky, for instance, is another one that it really gets into your head. I think things that make you feel slightly uncomfortable as well. For me, it has a much more lasting impression.
Well, in terms of feeling uncomfortable, go with that a bit. So, are there any books where you could give an example where that happened?
Well, I don't. Crime and Punishment is a very, very dark book, and it tries to. It gets into the head of a killer who then becomes becomes very guilty about the crime that he's committed, and the rational. I mean, a lot of it is rambles on, but it's very interesting that. Because the book, although it's quite a long book, but it doesn't. After you've read it, you think, "Oh, actually, it's quite a short story," if that makes sense. But it's the way he gets into the head of the main character and his tortured guilt, as it were.
I know exactly what you mean about the long book short story, because I've just read Moby Dick, and I went in going, oh, this is a story of a megalomaniac who's obsessed with vengeance against a whale. So about 8% of it is. The rest of it is just long out-of-date whale facts.
I've not read that one.
It's quite... What surprised me about it was it's quite funny. The narrator is quite light-hearted and irreverent, even about, Christian religion at the time when it was written in, America 200 years ago. It's all quite tongue-in-cheek and quite irreverent, so it's a lot easier to read than its reputation suggests, but there is only enough plot for a short story.
I found that with Thomas Hardy when I read, and I had to read Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I think it was for A-level, but I found that was an incredibly short story, but the book is quite dense, but it's largely because whenever a character walks into a shop, Hardy will tell you everything that is on every single shelf. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's going to paint a picture. It's not. It's just lists, really.
I did that for O-level, and I got about 10 pages in, and I went, "Oh, sod that," and I said, "I'll wing it." I couldn't do it. No, it was Far from the Madding Crowd. I beg your pardon.
Right, yes.
So I got about, literally, I was given it for O-level, and I thought, oh, God, why do they give you the most boring books to read? Why don't they give you something interesting? Anyway, I'm sure it's a great book, but I couldn't get into it.
My mum did Tess of the D'Urbervilles at school, so I've never read it because she hated it. And the thing that annoyed her was that she found the kind of pivotal moment in the plot really annoying. So apparently there's a moment where a vitally important letter is slid under somebody's door, and as well as going under the door, it goes under the door mat and is lost, and they never read it. And she's just, for Christ's sake, organise your life better, and this won't happen.
I found, thinking about the books which made the impact that you were talking about there, Mark, one of the first books that had that impact on me was when I was about 15. And I was desperate to see the film of A Clockwork Orange, but it was banned until 1997. So I got hold of the book, And of course, it's written in Nadsat. The whole thing is written in this made-up language.
It's very difficult to read, isn't it? You need almost a dictionary to translate it.
You do. Somebody recommended to me to read it like Shakespeare, to try and read and feel the emotion rather than going for the specific words, and that helped a little. And I've revisited it twice and enjoyed it subsequently more each time, of course. But then I discovered that Burgess only wrote it because it was a contractual obligation. He had to write a book, and he didn't really want to. And so he turned out A Clockwork Orange in a fortnight, which baffles me because it's such a, like you say, it is. You need a dictionary to try and understand this weird hybrid of Russian that he's concocted. But the impact, I think, that it had on me, once you know what those words mean, once you know what the word he uses for blood is, and something like that, that had a really quite a visceral impact, probably more than when I eventually got to see the film. I think it was 1997, 98 when you could finally see it. And I think
it was banned for a while, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was, yeah. Kubrick took it out of circulation.
Yeah, the legend is that Kubrick had it pulled from circulation because he was worried about copycat crimes.
That's what I understood. Which maybe
it's sort of that. It's a little more than that though, because it was more that he got annoyed with people telling him that it could cause copycat crimes. I think it hadn't caused a single one.
Kubrick would done what Kubrick would have done for the best thing for Stanley Kubrick, rather than anybody else.
Yeah, with that one, it was just he was getting fed up with people having a go at him. So he just went, all right, take it out of circulation. That's that. And that's why we couldn't see it until he died. A friend of mine got hold of a dodgy VHS copy from a video shop in Camden. Where
I actually saw it. I snuck in underage because I was like 12. I don't know how I got in.
Yeah,
I managed to saw it in Leicester Square, and I actually really, really liked it. And at 12 years old, it didn't really have I thought it was just an amazing piece of. The fight scenes were like ballet. I mean, one of them was sort of done to the Thieving Magpie, or whatever. But I just thought it was a wonderfully well-made film. But I've seen it again since, and it kind of is a bit dated now.
The use of language is extraordinary in it, though. And you can tell Burgess was kind of a bit of a philologist as well, because a lot of the language usage is very accurate. There's a bit where Alex is issuing a challenge, basically, to the leader of another gang to come and have a fight. And he calls him Thou, which, of course, is the familiar form of you. So it's an insult. It's calling him a lower social status than he actually is. So it's all very well observed linguistically, if not politically. My favourite bit is when he's in jail and he refers to somebody several times as the Prison Charles. And I was reading it and go, what the hell's the Prison Charles? And then the third time he refers to him, he calls him the Charlie. And you go, oh, the chaplain. Of course it is.
Oh, right.
Why? Yeah. And to see so many British actors who I associate largely with LWT sitcoms in this film as well is quite a remarkable thing as well.
Yes, that's right. I think the prison guard was he was wonderful, wasn't he?
Michael Bates from A Taint Half Up.
Michael Bates, who his thumb on his broken nose, and sort of sadistic moments. Yeah, but all those characters that you would see on like Lester's house or whatever in this really futuristic, bizarre film was it was interesting.
It must be now. So I'm thinking, if you think back, Mark, I mean, the people who you worked with as well, wasn't Sheila Stiefel your mum in Melody?
She was.
Yeah. So to have worked with those people, when you think back now, at the time, were you aware that these were like kind of, well, they weren't cult figures at the time, but they were well-known figures. Were you apprehensive about them at all?
No, not really. I mean, the last movie I made, Prince and the Pauper, I worked with Charlton Heston, Ernest Borgnine, George C. Scott, Raquel Welch, and none of any of these. It's kind of what I legend actors, Oliver Reed, of course, in it too, but never was intimidated by them. I mean, they're just people, but and I think because I was a kid, well, I wasn't a kid, I was like 18, but I think they were more receptive to me, but intimidated by them, no, not really. It was just like, it was a great experience, to sit opposite. I mean, George C. Scott, who I've always admired as an amazing actor, to be sort of in the same scene with him. Looking back on it now has actually made me think, wow, that's pretty incredible. But at the time, you just get on with it.
And George C. Scott's got a Kubrick connection, of course.
Yeah, he was Paths of Glory, wasn't it? Was it? No, it was Strangelove.
Yeah, and there's a story that he didn't really like the script of Strangelove, and he refused to start filming on it until Kubrick beat him at chess.
Well, here we are back in the shed. Our rambles for now are ended. And Mark Lester, one of the joys of doing this show is that I can occasionally say to our producer, I'd really like to speak to this person. And then it happens. And you were one such person. So it's been an absolute delight for me. So thank you very much. And I think what I wanted to tell you is about 2 weeks ago, I was with Mark, who is Tony's partner, at their home. And he suddenly said, I've got a film to recommend to you. And it was one of our favourites. And there it is. There's Melody, which was an absolute favourite of theirs. But the lovely thing for me is I was able to say, well, no, you're okay, because I do have it in several different formats. And in fact, that was a film which I saw just before I went off to university in 1993. And during first year, I showed it it was a pure attempt at seduction to the woman who I then married. And then she walked down the aisle to The Morning of My Life. And we actually used the recording from the soundtrack. So
how sweet.
It's a film which has always meant the world to me. So I've been delighted. But you met our lovely Tony, didn't you, as well?
We did it's a charity event back, it must have been back in the mid-90s at the London Hilton, and it was the Variety Club. So we sat and had a whole 3 hours together. I think it was his next to me actually, and he was just great. And I can't really remember. We were, when you chat, you just don't talk about much. You can't really. It's just so easy to talk to, and just a fun. And of course, his face was everywhere. He was on everything. You switch on ITV, BBC, whatever. Tony was all over the place, everything. And I was a great fan of Whose Line Is It Anyway, as well. It's a great show. And of course, Tony was pretty much resident on that. So I was just kind of in awe of him, actually. I mean, but I do remember him being, very chatty, very upbeat, very, just really easy to talk to.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming along and rambling with us this week. It's been an absolute joy. I'm over the moon. So thank you for joining us this week. And thank you to everyone at home for listening as well. And we really hope that you enjoyed this week's meeting of the Rambling Club.
It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
As you know, the club meets every Friday. If you'd like to get in touch in the meantime, here's how you can find your fellow members.
Tony's official website is at www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch on the contact form on the website.
We're on Twitter at Slattery Live. Please feel free to use the hashtag TSRC to discuss any of this week's topics.
I'm on Twitter, just about still, at Paul Carmichael V, but you can find me on Blue Sky, and you can find Slattery Live on Blue Sky as well.
Yep, or at Rambling Club on Blue Sky. And Tony also has a Facebook group at www.facebook.com/group/the_Tony Slattery.
And he's even on Instagram at Tony_Slattery_official.
And if people want to join the Rambling Club for themselves, how do they do that, Paul?
Well, what they can do is they can head to www.patreon.com/slatterylive. We'd be delighted to welcome you. You find all sorts of perks for members there. You can hear episodes in advance. You can see all sorts of photographs, some from the sessions that we record. So why not travel over to www.patreon.com/slatterylive and have a look.
So please do get in touch by any of those methods. We'd be thrilled to hear from you. And if you've enjoyed us talking to Mark Lester about orchards, fruits and forestry, why not reward the fruits of our labours by going to your podcasting app and giving us 5 stars or a nice little review?
Oh, that was very good. Very good. And we will be back next Friday at 5 to 5 when our guest president will be none other than the star of Room 101 and They Think It's All Over, Nick Hancock. But until then, it's a goodbye from myself, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from my colleague, Mr. Alan Lear.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from our wonderful, very special guest president this week, Mr. Mark Lester.
My pleasure. Goodbye.
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with our special guest president, Mark Lester. He was accompanied by Stephen Frey as the voice of the bingo machine. Acting President Lester was assisted by Paul Carmichael and Ellen Lear. The music was composed and performed by Michael Livesley and Andy Fritzell. Silly voice are by Michael Livesley and the show's concept is by Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Ellen Dubing and the show's researchers is Sula Carmichael. The show's producers are Erika Lear and Mark Hutchinson and the program was edited by Harry Carmichael. Our executive producer is Chris Castle and the series executive producer is Mark Strickse. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club ist eine Fanfanittel-Produktion.
Goodbye, and thank you for listening.